And it's also the misconception about what investors do, because there's this barrier between investors don't like agents and agents don't like investor. One of my missions in life is to eliminate that barrier and make it to where there's synergy. Because at the end of the day, we work with sellers, motivated sellers, and we add value. The process of qualifying a lead is the same, whether it's an investment or a listing. And I heard you talk about you just do wholesaling. We had to have a big shift in mindset because we were doing just listings for a really long time. And then we transitioned to just doing wholesaling for a while. And then we realized we had that same kind of mindset shift of what are we doing with these other leads? And it was because at that moment we felt we only wanted to do this one thing. And the moment we opened up our mind to both is when our business really started to grow. So we pivoted to doing a lot more listings this year because we've decided that we're just here to serve the seller. It doesn't matter what they need. We're not trying to convince someone on something that they don't want to do. One thing you will realize as you talk, the moment you're trying to convince someone, you've lost the battle. Aaron says that all the time.
That's right.
So we're not trying to convince someone to take a cash offer that wants retail, or we're not trying to convince someone that wants retail to take a cash offer. We're just trying to align a solution with what they need. So in order to determine what somebody needs, there's key questions you have to ask. Number one is motivation. What's going on, right? And it's very simple. Hey, Mr. Seller, what even has you thinking about selling the property? Simple question, right? And then from there, this is where it requires a higher level of skill because a lot of agents stay surface level. As a salesperson, like we want to close and we get overly attached to this concept of who we are as closers and we get deals. And that's the wrong way to look at it because then it puts you in that frame where like you're going to close no matter what and you're going to just do whatever needs to be done to get the sale versus serving. You know, I've shifted a lot of my conversations and the way I talk to people, being curious about their situation versus having an idea of what I want to do, which from a real estate standpoint, if we want a listing, we're going in hard. Like, I'm going to get a listing signed today. And that energy comes off. And what if you're having a listing conversation and the seller's like, look, I don't want to list because I don't want people walking in and out of the house because I had a seller once that had like 10 cats. Every time I have to show the house, if I got to take care of my cats, and what if one of the cats leaves? It sounds silly, but for them, that was something that was like, they didn't want to deal with that. So for them, having just a cash buyer where they knew it was one person and it was going to close and their cats were taken care of, we had to relocate the cats. Like these things happen, right? That was more important for them. But if I had come into that conversation with like, I'm going to get a listing no matter what, there's a difference between objections and like real concerns that the sellers has. An objection is like, what's your commission? That means they're like ready to do business with you. We just have to understand the commission component and then we can close. But like, I just don't want to list the property because I don't want that process. That's different. That's not an objection.
That's a condition.
You're not listening.
You're not listening to me.
Yeah. The motivation is the first thing we need to uncover, right? Whatever conversation, whether you're cold calling, you're doing a PPC lead, then we get into time frame and urgency. What's the ideal time frame that you want to sell the property? That gives us a lot of information.
And what would that sound like?
Hey, what's the ideal time frame you want to sell the property?
Yeah, ideally in terms of what you want. That's what's most important.
Simple.
How soon would you like to get this property?
Yeah. Yeah.
Simple. Right?
So there's a series of answers, right? It could be 30 days. 60.
Well, and then I'm curious, 30, 60, but then let's say, because most agents stop there. Let's say somebody says, well, I want to sell it quick.
What's important about selling it quick? That's a question that a lot of agents miss because you could get a lot of information. So here are key components for a cash offer, right? Speed, right? It's either convenience or speed, or maybe the house needs a lot of repairs, or there's a really difficult situation that they're going through financially where they need to sell it and they can't wait. So time is crucial when it comes to determining what's going to be the best fit. So if they say quick, you can't just move away to the next question. You got to linger there, be able to match them with the right solution, because if they've got a lot of time, they want to sell the property, but there's no real pull emotionally, financially, there's no distress. Like the key word is distress. If there's distress, a lot of times the cash offer is going to be the best fit. Not all the time, but a lot of times. If there's distress and they need to sell quickly, now you got to align them with the right solution, which is a cash offer. So quickly could mean I need to sell in 2 weeks because I'm about to lose my house and I'm about to go into an auction, right? In that instance, as an agent, even if you were the ninja of the agents, you're not gonna get an offer in 2 weeks and you're not gonna be able to speed up the process where they don't lose their house. So maybe quick for them means I need to close in 2 weeks because I'm about to lose my house. And you're trying to list it, you're doing them a disservice. And I've seen it happen where the agent goes in, let me list it, I can get you an offer quickly. In that moment where you're in a high stress situation, it's not about getting an offer quickly. It's about working with an investor that understands the procedures when someone's going into auction, how to stop the sale. We need to get an attorney involved. Like there's layers to that type of service. So motivation, time frame, And then the other piece is price. This is where a lot of people get stuck, is on the price component. Like, what can I offer?
Why do they get stuck?
Because one, they don't know how to ask price. Two, they don't know how to get the seller's real asking price.
So what are they doing wrong?
They're going too quickly into, so rules of sales, right? You can't pitch until you know what the situation is. And great salespeople understand that, but we're either too eager to get a sale, or like the bills got to get paid. So like we're pitching every person. And what that does is it's a disservice to them, and it kind of repels them. So I'll give you like a life example, because I recently went to get a car. If you go into the dealership and they say, hey, welcome to the dealership, we've got this car with red interiors, you know, brand new, you know, it has all these features. And I just stepped in and I'm like, look, I don't care about the red interiors or all those features. I want a simple black car that takes me from here to here. Now this person is working against themselves, because they're trying to pitch me all these things that I don't care about. The same is true here when it comes to a sales conversation. So if you're doing the cash offer, so it depends. We have a couple options available. Just wanted to know which one's gonna be the best fit for you. One is a direct offer with a cash buyer. Another one is we can go in the open market and list a home. Those processes are different based on what you're looking for. Which one of those two you think you'd be open to exploring? And it depends where the seller is leaning, because price is a key component. Here's one thing that I want all agents to learn. When you're framing the listing versus a cash offer, you have to explain the differences in the process and the benefits, and then align it with price. So what do we do if we're presenting the cash offer? Hey, look, the cash offer process, there's a few components that a lot of sellers really like. I don't know how important this is for you, but there's the speed factor where they can close quickly. They take care of all the closing costs. There's no commissions involved, and it's a guaranteed sale. Now, the price isn't necessarily always gonna be the highest price, because they offer all those components. If it was that type of offer where you had all those benefits, realistically, like what would be your rock bottom number that you would accept? There's a difference between I want a cash offer, because every seller wants a cash offer, and I'm realistic about what a real cash offer looks like. And that's the frame that we have to put the seller into, which a lot of agents fail. Because we're training a lot of newer agents and they're like, oh, they said they want a cash offer. And then when I always go back to what's the motivation, what's the time frame. So it's a process of understanding. It always goes back to motivation and time frame. So the same thing when you're going into the listing side of it. If I know in my heart that the cash offer is not the best fit because the house is in perfect condition. If the seller is telling me, I just put $100,000 into my house, it's the most beautiful house in the neighborhood, but I want a cash offer. Now it's my job to realign them with what a realistic cash offer would be, and get them back on track with what the listing, which is gonna be the best fit for them. So questions, motivation, oh, you know, I just want to upgrade into a nicer house because my house is nice, but I want one with a backyard with a pool. Okay, what's important about that? How long have you been thinking about that? Is it an option not to sell and move? These are like the series of questions that we go into. What about time frame? Like, what's the ideal time frame? Look, if it sells in 30 days, great. If it sells in 60 days too, like I'm not in a crunch with time. Okay, at that moment, I have enough information to say, look, we've got these two options. And when they say, look, I want to get the most money for my house, I don't care how long it takes, then I'm gonna pivot out of the cash. I know you were open to exploring this option. Based on what you're telling me, it just seems like the cash offer is gonna be way too low based on what your goals are. Here's another solution, right? If your goal is to get the most money possible, the best way we're gonna do that is expose it to everyone in the marketplace. And the best way we're gonna do that is exploring your option of going on the market. Now, I don't know if it makes sense, but would you be open to having a conversation? And it's also selling from a place of integrity, because a lot of times in the wholesale space, when you're so focused on cash offers, you're trying so hard to put that seller into your bucket of what a cash offer is. And there's a lot more resistance because that's not what they want, but that's what you're trying to do. You got to hit your numbers. You're spending money in marketing. So there's like a lack of integrity sometimes when you're pushing so hard to get that done. Versus when you're okay with whatever outcome, whether it's the listing or the cash offer, it's a lot easier. There's a lot less resistance because you're just aligning them with a solution. And you make money both ways, right? And it's also a matter of helping the seller reframe around what a cash offer would be and why a cash offer is gonna benefit them. So there's also a component there of acknowledging what the best fit is. And when you realize that it's not in alignment with their expectations, you have to, be a good enough salesperson to get the seller to self-discover about why that may or may not be the best solution. So I'll give you one scenario. They have an auction, they're about to lose their house in 3 weeks and they want retail and the house is in complete disrepairs. So in that moment, you're recognizing that the cash offer is gonna be the best solution. Now it's your job to get the seller to self-discover as to why.
So what would be a question you could ask to help them to discover that around time?
Around time, like, look, Mr. Seller, I know you mentioned that you want, the top of the market, right? but we're also running against the clock with time, right? And even though I want to serve you at a high level, what happens if we don't have a buyer secured in the next 30 days? And it requires a lot of patience, because a lot of times too, when we have a lot of product knowledge, like I do, it's a process of getting yourself to not throw out all the product knowledge and giving yourself the space for the seller to respond. Because right now you guys are learning the product knowledge, so you don't know what to offer. So you're really good at asking the questions, but once you know, you're like ready, like I know
what the answer is.
So it's a process of taking a step back and letting the seller be in that moment. Like great salespeople are really good listeners. They really care and they want to serve people at a high level, but then they also are assertive. So when it comes time to present the solution, they can guide the seller towards making a decision, because a lot of times they're in their own way, right? They don't know what's good for them, but you can't tell them. You have to, through really great questions, have them self-discover as to why that may or may not be. Like what happens so a lot of sellers in pre-foreclosure, for example, they're in denial, right? Like, what options have you explored? Has that worked? Has that not worked? What's next? What happens if that doesn't work? So I'm asking guided questions to get them to kind of reflect on the situation and come to like an aha moment of, we need to do something now.